I'm Michelle Armstrong. I am a managing director at Aries Management Corporation. I'm also president of our Aries Charitable Foundation, which is the philanthropic arm of the firm. We're really focused on how do we make a meaningful difference, not only in the communities where we operate as a firm, but also in the lives of the individuals who live in those communities. So across the world, we are looking for organizations that share these ideals, that are very committed to helping people to be the best that they can be and to be change agents not only in their own life but also in the lives of others, so that everyone has a level playing field when it comes to achieving their best in life.
So how did you get where you are today?
I've always had a strong interest in human behavior and understanding what it is that makes people tick. And so when going to college, I thought maybe I'll major in like social studies or some type of social science. And so I took a path that I did not anticipate taking, which was studying social anthropology. A little bit different than what I had originally anticipated, but certainly one that gave me the opportunity to really spread my wings when it came to understanding liberal arts, understanding people, understanding cultures. And so I thought upon graduation that I would take a somewhat traditional path. And I did spend about the first year out of college working for a financial services firm. Quickly realized this is not the job for me and determined that I wanted to do something that was more people oriented and that also could make a meaningful and sustained difference in individuals' lives. So I went the nonprofit route. And so I worked for a few years in nonprofits in Virginia. And so that was a segue for me going back into graduate school and where I studied sociology and education. And so I was able to have the opportunity to become very involved in research activities and looking at some of those gaps when it comes to access and opportunity, particularly for young people who were looking to think about what's going to happen after high school. And I wanted to take that background that I'd had in working in nonprofits and also doing research and kind of marry them together into a career. And so grant making for me and working in the foundation space was that perfect wedding between the two. And so I spent years as a program officer working on education issues. I also for a while had my own consultancy where I was helping to examine and to analyze the programs that philanthropies and foundations were funding so that they could determine, well, just how well are these programs actually working and how do we fine tune and improve our own practice as a foundation. And then I went back into the actual world of being a grant maker to land me where I am now, which is at Aries and heading all of our grant making and strategic initiatives around our philanthropy at the firm.
I'm wondering if there was a catalyst that you could think of that brought you down this career path.
I would say my mother was always very involved in community service, trying to help those who were less fortunate. She was a volunteer counselor for domestic violence and working with our women's shelters in our community. I would also say that my eyes were really opened in the role that I held as a researcher. So when I went to graduate school, I ended up working as a researcher and having the chance to understand these issues around education, but particularly around access and opportunity through education when we were talking to organizations and talking to students and parents and teachers around the US. And I'll never forget, we were in California at one point and we were talking to parents whose students were going through a program that was being funded by the College Board. And many of the parents were working in the strawberry fields and they were migrant farmers, essentially, trying to make that living for their children and for their family. And I remember the parents showing us their hands and showing us how they were stained because of the strawberries that they were picking. And they said, I don't want this life for my child. I'm doing this because I want to create a better future for them. And that has always stood out to me because everyone wants a life for their children that's better than the life that they themselves have had. And so that has always inspired me to think about what positive role can I play in helping to bring that kind of desire that parents have for their young people and for their children actually into fruition.
Can you tell us about some of the challenges you faced and how you overcame them?
Yeah, I think particularly the challenge around philanthropy, in particular for my job, is that people often have the misperception that we just give money away and that we do it just because it feels good. And it's a really hard job. I think if you want to be strategic, if you want to be thoughtful, if you want to be intentional about how you're actually trying to make a difference. And in particular, we have tried to educate those we come in contact with internally and externally at our firm about how robust and how rigorous the process is that we go through. We spend months talking with them, innovating with them, thinking very blue sky about what could be, what's being done already to address some of those issues, what's not being done, where we can come in and help innovate so that we can help problem solve those concerns. And so it's a very intense process, one that we are trying not only to fund innovative ideas, but also take away lessons learned that will help to inform our own practice that we can share with others so that they can think about, I never knew that you could address this problem that way, but here's a blueprint or here's a roadmap for how we could possibly do something different that we never thought of before. So it's a matter, I think, of really getting people to understand just the intentionality behind philanthropy if you want to ensure that what you're funding is meaningful, is measurable, and is sustainable. So it's a matter of prioritizing where do you put your investment. And I don't just mean dollars and cents, but also your investment of time, your investment of relationships that you're building with organizations, your relationships that you're building with other funders and other philanthropies to hopefully bring them on board when it comes to funding some of these critical initiatives. So a matter of prioritizing when there's so many competing priorities is always a hard thing to do.
What is some advice you would give to young people who are sort of looking to put their passion into work like yours?
You should see the vast opportunities that are out there. As I said to you earlier, I originally thought, oh, I'll be a doctor or a lawyer because those sound so traditional, right? Philanthropy, who thinks about, oh, I'm going to go up to be a grant maker? Like nobody thinks about that. And so take pause and to look at the people, the communities around me, but again, not just in my immediate worldview, but to think bigger than that and to think about what's the most meaningful way that I can make a difference. And so just to be careful not to kind of stymie myself or to block myself into thinking it has to be this or this, but to just think a little bit more free form about what could be and to be able to craft something for myself that may not even exist, but would bring me joy and also hopefully make a difference in other people's lives. And so be informed, stay well read, have conversations with people about what is the state of the world, understand not just your own perspective, but learn to look through and to listen through the perspective of others so that you can really develop a well-rounded 360-degree perspective on the world. Because when you're able to do that, when you're able to develop that kind of keen insight, it helps to inform the way you make decisions. And so I think just being able to understand the world in which we live, but not just from your own viewpoint, but from the vantage of others is critical. And the other thing I would say too is to always listen. Sometimes it's not important to be the one who's speaking. Sometimes it's more important to be the one who's listening, because when you're listening, you're able to not just hear, but you're able to really glean information and glean knowledge that will help, again, to inform your worldview and also how you think about making a difference in the lives of others.